Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more rifle testing. And we're still out here on a pretty cold morning, but the temperature has climbed into about 21 degrees now. So it's not as bad as it was earlier, but it's still pretty cold and everything is still frozen. But that doesn't mean that we can't come out here and test something. And I've definitely got a pretty interesting one out here today. It's at least a new round of ammunition that we haven't tried, and one that I'm definitely curious to see how well it actually does through this particular setup anyway. So as for the setup I've got out here today, I brought out this guy again. This is my Winchester Model 70 short action carbine, chambered in 243. It has the shorter carbine length 20-inch barrel on it with a Vortex Diamondback 4-12 by 40 on top. So pretty compact, lightweight little type of deer gun here that has shown some really good performance for us in the past. So there's definitely a chance that it does pretty well again today. And as for the ammunition I've got here today, I picked up some of these. These are some of the Remington High Performance Rifle rounds. Now, they look kind of the same as core locks. The bullet looks like a core lock bullet, but they may very well be constructed a little bit different, a little bit thinner jacket, something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but these are technically not core locks. They are high performance rifle line. And for what we have, they are a 243 80 grain pointed soft point round. So a little bit lighter than some of the stuff that we've previously tested. So will this shorter carbine barrel really like the lighter ammunition? There's definitely a potential of it. Either way, I think we should see some at least halfway decent performance out of this stuff. So as for the test, we're going to do it the same as we usually do it. I have a target set up at 100 yards. I also have the chronograph, which I don't think I showed it, but that box does claim 3,350 feet per second. Now, I highly doubt we're going to see 3,350 feet per second through a 20-inch carbine length barrel, but you never know. Either way, even if we see up around the 3,000 mark, that's still going to be moving out pretty decently. But either way, the chronograph will tell us our speed and energy numbers. So as for our groups, we'll shoot 3 groups, 3 shots each. Then we'll come back up here and look through our chrono numbers, and we'll bring out the calipers and measure how good or how terrible our accuracy is. So enough talking. Let's get you guys set up with a view of the target and the chronograph and start shooting these groups and seeing what we can actually get out of these Remington High Performance Rifle 80 grainers today. Okay, so let's go through here real quick and look at our chronograph numbers. The box was claiming 3,350, and of course, like I expected, we did not see that with this 20-inch barrel, but we did see 3,000 feet per second and hovering right around that mark as well. So let's go through our numbers and see what it actually gave us. So for a high, we had 3061. For a low, we had 2936. That gave us an average of 3,000 on the dot, with an extreme spread of 125 and a standard deviation of 42. So with those numbers, that shows us that we're 350 feet per second under the box claim, which is about realistic for what I would have expected out of this barrel. So overall here, not necessarily the most ultra consistent velocity rounds, but considering the setup, I'm pretty happy with 3,000 feet per second. That's more than enough to do the job for whatever you would use an 80 grain soft point from a 243 for, that's for sure. Okay, so let's take a look at our target and see what kind of accuracy we actually had here. And I gotta say, I was definitely hoping for a little bit better. It's not terrible, I wouldn't say, but it's not amazing either, really. Just without even measuring it, I'd call it middle of the road. We've absolutely seen better out of that rifle, that's for sure. But let's measure it and see. We'll start off with the first group, which is there in the middle, which might be our worst group or close to it compared to that third group. But either way, let's measure that middle group up there on the top and see what it gave us. Okay, so that first group gave us 1.84. I do apologize for the blinking here, but it's cold out and the battery in these calipers don't like that. So 1.84, it's under 2 inches. It's good enough for whatever you would use it for, but I definitely wouldn't call it impressive. But let's move to our second group on the bottom left there, which is probably our best group of the day. So let's measure that one and see what we got. Okay, so that second group gave us a 1.10. So right at an inch, it's definitely good enough. I wouldn't call an inch group terrible by any means. And realistically, seeing the rest of these groups here, I'm thinking that's probably about as good as you're going to get out of that round from this particular rifle. So I think that's our best group of the day, but let's go over to that third group in the bottom right and measure it. Now I did click the scope a couple clicks to the left just to keep all of our bullets on paper. I normally don't like to do that in the middle of the test, but I'd rather do that than try and hold a certain spot on this target consistently. So that's why we're centered up a little bit better on that particular group than the rest. But let's measure it and see what it gave us. Okay, so our last group gave us 1.98. Definitely our worst group of the day. You're still under the 2-inch mark, so I wouldn't call it terrible again, but it's not impressive, and I was absolutely hoping for a little bit better. So overall here, a little bit disappointed, I'd say. I was thinking we should see a little bit better than that, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. That's why you test rounds and see what your gun likes and doesn't like. Either way, I'd say about an inch is about as good as you're going to get out of these through this setup. So kind of is what it is as for results for us today, I'd say. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about those results there? Definitely, I'd call them somewhere middle of the road. They're not absolutely terrible, but they're definitely nothing amazing or anything special either. They would absolutely be good enough to use them for what you would want to use them for out to 100 yards, whether that be things like groundhogs or coyotes or maybe even a deer. I don't know that I would personally use that particular loading for deer, but it would absolutely do the job in the right scenario. But either way, let me know your thoughts about it. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you hoping for a little bit better or expecting a little bit worse than that? And if you tried any of these Remington High Performance Rifle 243 80 grainers, what setup have you been using and how have they done for you as for performance? Let me know all that down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got a bunch more stuff coming for y'all. New loads, new chokes, and a bunch of stuff that you're not going to want to miss. So stay tuned for all that. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send things over into the channel if you'd like. So all that information will be in the description if you're interested. But with that being said, I'm going to get back to the testing. So I'll see y'all in the next one.